This is the Louie T Network.
Man, I love some football. Man, I love some football. My favorite week is week 1, cause I'm watching football. First comes the preseason, and I don't take a day off. And then it gets even better when your team makes the playoffs. 32 teams go hard for one thing. They work for one thing. That Super Bowl ring. 32 teams go hard for one thing. They work for one thing. That Super Bowl ring. We in the lab room.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Week number 5 is the National Football League game of the week here in the lab room. Arizona Cardinals undefeated on the season, fresh off of a week 4 bye, taking on another team fresh off of a week 4 bye, the 2-1 Denver Broncos. Look, somebody's got to give here. Broncos just came off of a loss right before the bye to the Seattle Seahawks. Again, for the second time in less than a calendar year. And so they're out for blood. They need to take out something on somebody. And so that team, unfortunately, had to be the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. So could the Cardinals, who said this game was a statement game, could they march into Mile High, come out with a W? Let's talk about it. Nice opening drive for Arizona, leads to a field goal. It's 3-0 Arizona. And you know how this goes. You're playing against Peyton Manning and one of the highest powered offenses we've ever seen in the National Football League. You got to score touchdowns. Look, I love the opening drive. I love how they move the football down the field. I need you to get in the end zone. And you'll find that when you play against Peyton Manning, you don't get the opportunities. You're not afforded the same opportunities that you are maybe against some of these other quarterbacks around the league. Hey, getting a field goal is great against Russell Wilson. Getting a field goal is great against Colin Kaepernick. Getting a field goal is great maybe against Jay Cutler. It's not great against Peyton Manning because he's going to score touchdowns. When they get in the red zone, it's not going to be many field goals being kicked. They're going to be touchdowns deposited into the end zone. So if you're Arizona, hey, way to get points on the board on that opening drive and let the Denver Broncos know, hey, we're here to play football. But it would have been an even bigger statement to put 7 up and tell these guys, hey, we're going to match you guys. If you want to go touchdown for touchdown, we're here. And we can do it all day long, right along with you. So it's 3-0 Arizona in this game. Peyton and company respond with a TD march, capped with a 7-yard juice touchdown. And like I just said, you give Peyton Manning the football, you give him some opportunities, give him a little bit of time. One of these guys are going to get open. There are too many weapons on the field, from Juice to Emmanuel Sanders to Wes Welker to, of course, Double 8. There are too many weapons at his disposal. Somebody's going to shake loose, and Peyton Manning isn't going to miss at 7-3. Denver Broncos on top. Peyton's 500th touchdown toss on that play to Juice makes him the second quarterback in NFL history to cross that threshold. And of course, the first being Brett Favre, and he's going to catch Brett for that lead all time. At some point, maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, he's going to surpass Brett Favre, take over the mantle as the NFL's greatest passer of touchdowns in this league. You know how I feel about Peyton Manning. I've already said this. It's a debate that will continue on forever as to who is the best, who's the greatest of all time. But the numbers They don't lie. Neither do Super Bowl rings. He didn't have enough of them. He'd love to finish his career off with another one or two of those things to really cement his legacy in this league. But that's nor here nor there. 500th touchdown in his career. They're up 7-3 in this ball game. Cards burn their final 2 timeouts of the first half en route to another field goal. It's 7-6. The Denver Broncos defensive back Roby, who's their rookie from Ohio State, I thought he got away with a pass interference on that third down that forced the Cardinals to have to settle for a Catanzaro field goal. I thought he was there earlier than the ball was, got away with a little something extra, but it's all good. It's a field goal. It's 7-6 again. Touchdowns win games, especially when you're playing the Denver Broncos. Okay, got to get in the end zone. Weren't able to do that. It's now 7-6. We end the first quarter with that score. Peyton picked off by Gerard Powers as the Cards take over at their own 45. But the drops are plaguing the Arizona Cardinals early in this game. I know the announcers, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, made a big deal out of Drew Stanton throwing some balls early in this game that could have been caught, like that deep ball in the end zone to Sheriff John Brown. That was out of his reach. I mean, the man was running as fast as he humanly possibly could. What do you want him to do? I mean, maybe he could have dove. It was still over the wrong shoulder. I didn't think it was within reach. They said it was a perfectly thrown ball. No, it wasn't. If it was perfectly thrown, it would have been in his hands with a chance to catch it, not him reaching over and barely being able to get a fingertip on it. So didn't think it was a perfectly thrown ball, but there were some drops in this game, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. And Larry Fitzgerald on this drive had a huge third down drop that forced the Cardinals to have to punt the football. Emmanuel Sanders has a 77-yard touchdown called back and reversed in replay. He caught the pass, was not touched initially. As he starts to get up, he's touched down. As he's getting up, he takes off down the sidelines. They ruled it a touchdown initially. Take a look at it. It's not a touchdown. So it's ruled a 30-yard gain. And then Double 8 says, well, if you don't want him to get in the end zone, hey, I'll do the rest. 31-yard touchdown for Double 8. After he catches a slant and just takes off, stiff arms a defender, gets in the end zone. It's 14-6. Denver out on top, extending that lead in this game. That's Peyton Manning's second touchdown toss of the game. Calais Campbell does pick Peyton Manning off, however, on the next possession for the Broncos and returns it 23 yards down to the Denver 5-yard line, where Andre Alley gets in the end zone from there. And so it's 14-13. Arizona Cardinals hanging around. That's how you do it. You force a turnover, turn it into points. And I'm not talking about the 3 variety, I'm talking about a 7-piece. And that's what they did. It's 14-13. They're sitting right there, loitering in Mile High are these Arizona Cardinals. Sheriff John Brown with a huge drop on third down. And again, these were some critical drops. These weren't first down drops. These weren't second. These were third down drops. Larry Fitzgerald's drop was a third down drop. Sheriff John Brown's drop was a third down drop. We'll talk about Ted Ginn Jr. having a critical drop later on in the game. These are some crucial drops that they had in this game that could have maybe altered the outcome of this game. You never know. You get a first down, you extend the drive, you never know what could possibly happen with that drive. Instead, it's a punt for the Arizona Cardinals, which turns into an 86-yard double 8 touchdown in 11 seconds flat. That's what happens when you make mistakes against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. You drop a pass on third down, you punt the football, the very next snap offensively for the Denver Broncos, it's a Manning to double 8 Demaryius Thomas strike for 86 yards. Now you're down 21-13. In the blink of an eye, you go from down 1 to down 8 because you made a mistake. That's how good this team is, especially on the offensive side of football. You can't afford to make those type of mistakes. So we go to halftime with the score 21-13. We head to the second half. 77-yard double 8 touchdown. He was hot. He's hot, homeboy. He was hot in this game. Flaming hot. He had started off the season rather slow. He had a breakout game against these Cardinals, career highs in yards, and he was doing it all. And luckily enough for the Cardinals that this was called back because of a chop block on Calais Campbell. And you had Ryan Clady and Juice combined on a chop block that injured Calais Campbell. He's going to be out for at least a month with a sprained MCL, so that's a tough break for the Cardinals. Bruce Arians was outraged after the game, called it the dirtiest play he'd ever seen in 39 years of coaching. So you know how he felt about the call. It's a tough break for the Arizona Cardinals as he got injured, and he was having a really strong game at the time. After avoiding a near disaster with a Ted Ginn Jr. muff on a punt, Logan Thomas, who is now in the game, keep in mind, Cardinals started the game without Carson Palmer, who's dealing with the nerve injury. Drew Stanton gets injured. He's slammed down on the turf, and he has a concussion. He's not coming back. So enter in, what we got? A 5th round selection, Logan Thomas out of Virginia Tech. Humpty Dumpty, as he was called during the draft. Who wants to put this big talented kid back together again, as Mike Mayock most eloquently put it? He came in the game and he held his own. You couldn't expect him to just start firing darts. But that's what he did on this particular play, as he finds Andre Alley, and I'm talking about in some tight, I'm talking about spandex tight coverage. This guy, and this is the type of arm that he has. I mean, we talked about his arm talent all draft process long and about how this kid could stroke it. This was the proof right here in the pudding. This throw had to be, and Troy Aikman said during the telecast, most veterans wouldn't even attempt this throw because of how tough of a throw it was and how dangerous. Again, the coverage was sticky. There were 2 defenders in the vicinity. The throw was so on target, so fast, and so accurate that the safety ran by and didn't even know the running back, Andre Alley, had the football until he was 15 yards up the field, and we're running off to the races for 81 yards. And remember, Demaryius Thomas had an 11-second touchdown for the Denver Broncos on that 86-yard strike from Peyton Manning? Well, Logan Thomas and Andre Alley hooked up for an 81-yard touchdown in those same 11 seconds. Just like that, Cardinals are back in this football game, 24-20. That takes us to the 4th quarter. Broncos answered that score with a field goal. And again, in this type of game, if the Cardinals could have stopped dropping passes and maybe had a play go here, go there for them, Denver kicking a field goal here could have backfired on them, but they get the field goal, extend the lead out to a touchdown. And then here's where those mistakes start to bite you right in your tuchus and rear their ugly head. Ted Ginn Jr. with yet another dropped pass on 3rd down. This is the 8th, no, let me say that again. The 8th dropped pass of the game for the Arizona Cardinals. And you can't win like that, especially not against this team. Maybe you could sneak a team that's a lesser opponent with 8 drop passes and still win. Can't do that to the Denver Broncos. Won't happen. And so Peyton makes them pay for that. And with his 2nd touchdown strike of the day to Juice, and that's his 4th touchdown of the day passing, as it's now 34-20. The Broncos tack on another touchdown late in the game. I believe that touchdown ended up being his 4th passing, maybe even his 5th. As the Denver Broncos win this game 41-20. Get it done. The score doesn't indicate how close this game actually was. I talked about this game in the 4th quarter being a 24-20 game before Ted Ginn Jr. drops a 3rd down pass that ultimately saw the tide of this game change dramatically. And so this was a close ball game. Cardinals gave it a run, but again, you can't make the type of mistakes they made in this football game with all the drop passes and some of the mistakes. And then, of course, doesn't help that you lose your starting quarterback that was originally your backup quarterback to start the season out during the course of the game. And you got to go with a 3rd stringer that's a rookie that doesn't get any snaps during a week of practice. And that's tough sledding. So Cardinals give it a run. Don't have enough firepower. And a lot of guys went down in this game. I talked about Drew Stanton going down. I talked about Calais Campbell going down. How about Pat P going down with an ankle injury in this game? He did not return. So they could be in some serious trouble moving forward depending on how serious and the severity of those injuries are in Arizona for all the guys that went down in this game. Hey, Denver gets it done. 41-20. They go to 3-1 on the season, drop the Arizona Cardinals to 3-1 with their first defeat of the season. Cardinals are going to be fine if these guys aren't severely injured. If they can come back and get quality play out of these players, if Carson Palmer is able to come back potentially, they'll be fine. They'll right the ship. But this was a tough one on the road to get with all the injuries that they sustained throughout the course of this game. If you're Denver, big win against an undefeated opponent coming off the bye. That's a good statement to make. You got to continue to play good football if you're the Denver Broncos. And they got it done at home. I expected them to do this. One thing that I didn't like what I saw, Brandon McManus, you cut ties with Matt Prater and retain the services of Brandon McManus. I wasn't impressed with him. I'm not going to lie to you. When you're in Mile High, I expect touchbacks. He was kicking the ball rather short. He clanked a field goal that went in. He also missed a field goal in this game, if I'm not mistaken. So I wasn't that impressed and thrilled with Brandon McManus. Wasn't a great debut for me in terms of seeing him. And I've watched him before, but I didn't pay much attention because I didn't expect him to be around long term. So I didn't chart his misses or makes. I wasn't paying a lot of attention to him because I expected him to just be a placeholder for Matt Prater when he came back from his suspension. Now that he's around, I'm taking a look at this kid, and I was not impressed. Hopefully he can tighten up because that's one of those positions you don't pay a lot of attention to, but it can cost you ball games. I need him to step his game up. Was not impressed with Brandon McManus in this game. So that's going to do it for the game of the week. Arizona Cardinals at the Denver Broncos. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I've got a couple more games to break down in week number 5 in the National Football League. See you in a bit.